Hello, dear listeners. Welcome to CareSmartz360 On Air. I'm Dennis Gale, Senior Sales Consultant at CareSmartz360. Today, we are joined by Joseph Smithberg, Franchisee Business Performance and Sales Coach at White at Home. With 15 plus years driving growth across home care, hospice, and behavioral health, Joseph had led turnarounds, built high performing teams, and helped owners scale beyond incremental gains. So, in this episode today, we'll explore the systems, the leadership principles, and referral strategies that fuel sustainable growth and transform care operations in today's complex home care landscape. So, welcome to the podcast, Joseph.
Thank you, Dennis. I appreciate it.
All right, so we're really glad that you were able to take out the time today for our listeners, and I hope this session would be a very fruitful one for all the listeners that have tuned in. Okay, so without wasting any time, I'll straight away jump on to my first question for you. So, Joseph, what are the biggest strategic shifts franchisee owners must embrace to move from incremental to transformational growth in home care?
Yeah, with the current landscape, there's just so much coming at us, especially from AI. I'm working with different companies that are handling AI scheduling,
Okay.
AI for lead management, AI for all kinds of things. Like I feel like I get a new vendor, approaching me via LinkedIn or email on a weekly basis just to, talk about their product and what's out there. There's also things where new devices that are going on in the home or that are wearable or either auditory that are listening to what's going on within the home. And so there's just so much more technology going on. And so owners are always asking me, how do I create differentiators? And now more than ever in our space, there are
Mhm.
just so many different differentiators that you can kind of implement into your business, or changing of structures, or finding AI to make things more efficient on how you typically have run the business, in order for you to kind of invest time in other resources or money in other resources in order to scale, in order to grow your business via client acquisition.
Okay. And how do you diagnose whether a franchisee location is ready to scale versus need its stabilization first?
Yeah, it's a great question. We part of what we do here at my company is we have a Right Start program. So it's really for those initial 6 months, 9 months or so, kind of depending on how long that owner takes to really kind of grasp the model and how they want to go about building their business within this franchise model that I work in. Um, and so typically for those people, unless it's the right product at the right time, in order to, like, with orientation of caregivers, or to implement certain strategies right out the gate, you might be a little bit of a spend, but sometimes it's smart to just, like, this is the way we've always done it, so we're going to continue to do it that way. A lot of the times with the new product, the new technology that's coming up, owners kind of look at it, or as the shiny new penny. There's a lot of things coming at us, and it's like, well, let's jump on that. That sounds great. And a lot of these companies have really slick salespeople, and so I think it's important to, like, either, have a conversation with your coach, your consultant, or just those in your network, or your allies out there in our industry, on if they have experience, what they've experienced with these different products. Because if you're not buttoned up operationally within your office, just on the traditional way of running home care, with the recruitment and hiring of caregivers, the recruitment and retention of our clients, if we're not efficient in doing that,
Yeah.
um, that adding to something new is just going to complicate things, muddy the water, so to speak. So we're trying to do so many things at once when we don't do the basics well. So once I work with an office, and I really feel like they've got the basics down, there's not a lot of cracks in the armor.
Mhm.
Things aren't falling through the cracks with their sales, or their pipeline, so to speak. Then it's like, okay, well, let's talk about ways we can scale, especially for an owner that's been in the business for 7 years, 10 years plus, where
Yeah.
they're just kind of, they have their processes in line,
Mhm.
but they're kind of stagnant at growth. I did like a data analysis where looking at different franchise systems within home care, and usually we see like a 7 year plateau, where about year seven the growth kind of stalls and it kind of plateaus. And so a lot of
Okay.
owners, like, I don't know what to do. I feel like I've penetrated my market. to a high degree, but we're still kind of stuck at this hours mark. And so what's next? And so then some of those conversations about these new products, these new differentiators come to light in an effort to be able to kind of take that next step towards growth and innovation.
Got it. Got it. Basically, the foundations should be strong. So that's why then they can build up on that part.
Hmm.
All right. And continuing with this, that what common referral ecosystem gaps do you see in franchise home care systems, and how can leaders close them, according to you?
Yeah. Do you mean as far as just our different referral partners, or are there like resources we're not tapping into?
Referral partners, I would say, to start with.
Yeah, I think, gosh, sales is my favorite thing to talk about. I was a sales representative for a long time before I started doing coaching and consulting. And
Okay.
so what I always coach is consistency is key, right? If we're not out there and if we're not, knocking on doors and building relationships, then good luck. I have a lot of people that want to spend on mobile leads and SEO and those types of things. And I've found that that landscape is as competitive, if not more competitive, than it is to just be out there, boots on the ground, doing that marketing. So I always encourage that we have to have some sort of a presence. If you're an owner of a business and you hire salespeople or marketers, community liaisons, whatever you might title them, to do that work for you, that's great. But the one consistent in these businesses is that owner, is the person that,
Yeah.
has his skin in the game.
Yeah.
Those salespeople will come and go. I'm sorry to say that. If you feel like you have a rock
That's
star,
right.
they might leave you in 2 years.
I know that. Yeah.
The one consistent though is you, and so even though they're out there doing their marketing and building these relationships, they need to be able to see that owner too. Whether that's a ribbon cutting or a 10-year anniversary of a hospital in your area, whatever that may be, that presence is important. That the owner is known in the community and a part of it. It shows that they like care about the people that we serve, the clients that we serve, the people we employ, and we generally want to give back to our, not only our referral partners but our competitors as well. There's so many people that need care, and so I think it's important that an owner shows face in that fashion. With referral partners, again, it comes down to approach and consistency in that approach. People don't. Um, Buy because the name on your shirt. They buy from the person. They're gonna need to know you and trust you, and that's so important. So in sales, relationships is key to any sale. But in home care, hospice, etc., it's relationships on steroids, so to speak. They really have to know and trust you in order for them to say, yes, you can care for my loved one. Yes, you can care for this patient that was in really serious critical situation in the hospital. Now they're discharging home. I trust you to take that on. So relationships are so important. And in order to establish those, consistency in your approach and being visible is vital.
Got it. Got it. And what leadership habits have you find most effective in building high-performing sales and operation teams across multiple markets?
Yeah, one thing I run into a lot is we hire a good person, and then after 6 months, an owner will be like, "Well, they're not really performing." And so
Hmm.
the question that I always ask next is, well, how much time have you spent with them? How have
Hmm.
you tried to manage them? How have you worked with them? And often what I find is people may or not know how to hire the right person, but more often than not, they don't know how to manage that salesperson. I interact with a lot of owners that aren't from this home care, healthcare space. They came
Hmm.
from the tech world or wherever it may be. And so it's a little bit foreign to them. So managing a salesperson within home care. And so I think it's super important that you kind of brush up on your skills on how to manage those people. You have check-ins, you do ride-alongs, you spend time with them in the field, do warm handoffs and help them create handoffs for you. All those things are important. We need to sit down with each other and how did the week go? Create plans for follow-up. Follow-up is so important in our business. And after each day, I would like the owner to sit down with, or at least the sales rep do it at first, and then maybe on a weekly basis, the owner reviews it. But let's review the calls that we made this day, and then this day, and then what's the plan for follow-up? Is it
Hmm.
helpful if I come with you? So there has to be a level of checks and balances. There has to be some KPIs that have been established in order for us to make sure they're doing their job as salespeople and to hold them accountable when things aren't going well. And not only that, but to really kind of celebrate wins and to create a bonus structure or a commission plan that makes sense and that's obtainable so it keeps them motivated and excited to grow. Um, I think when I hire someone or when I interview someone for a sales role, I'm never turned off if they're motivated by money. That's what I was motivated when I
That's
was in
right.
sales.
Yeah, everybody's
I
motivated by
cared deeply about the clients the patients that I cared for in hospice and the clients in home care. But I
money.
also had a family, and so
Yeah.
I think it's important that we dangle that carrot, that obtainable commission plan or bonus structure, so they can achieve greatness. And in the meantime, help a lot of people because if you're going to be successful in this space as a salesperson or an owner, the money's great, but the real value is like the difference we can make. And you walk into a living room as a stranger and you're leaving hugging everybody because they're so grateful for your expertise, and that you've really given them a kind of a bridge or a path forward.
That's it. Correct, correct. And now the most important thing everybody talking about AI. How should franchisee owners be thinking about AI adoption in home care beyond hype to real operational impact?
Yeah, like I mentioned earlier in the call, like there's just so many options out there.
Mhm.
There's some that I've vetted and I trust, and some that owners that in our system have jumped into, and through that word of mouth happens. So I would have conversations and learn from different platforms and really understand, and then ask questions of your neighbors, of them. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is,
Mhm.
but there are some really good solutions out there. A couple, for example, that, and I won't name names, but some really slick AI tools as far as on-call issues. People, that's kind of one of the biggest issues owners talk
Yeah,
about is on-call is just too much. AI features that handle that 24/7, shift replacement, caregiver engagement, all those types of things. There's awesome tools out there. And so I think it's worth a listen. I've even heard AI agents that are so good, they're probably better than 80% of people taking phone calls as far as inside sales is concerned, because it's empathetic and it just continues to learn, so
yeah,
the responses just get better and better. And so I say it's AI is now, and it's only going to become more and more robust. And so I would, take your time to identify which ones are going to help your business. But I think it's also smart to really start thinking about how you can integrate some of that into your day to day.
Mhm. And lastly, continuing with the previous questions, the last question from my side would be that looking ahead to 2026, what market trends or pressures do you believe will most influence in franchisee growth strategies?
Yeah, it's a good question. If you're not on board with Medicare Guide program, you should be.
Mhm.
It's a really exciting demonstration that most people are probably aware of in our space that are or would be listening to this podcast. Medicare's Guide program that'll run through 2032 has been such a big differentiator. If you can become the expert in that space, and seen as that local expert, then you'll get referrals for that program. But the real benefit that I've seen, it's essentially it schedules meetings for you. You mentioned Medicare, you mentioned free. People want to listen if they don't know about it. And from that, you open doors you couldn't get into before. You're having deeper conversations. You're seen as that trusted advisor. And then not only that, when you get these clients that are receiving that guide benefit, recognizing the need for additional care, having that conversation with them, because I have several people that have done this really well, where they may be billing 480 hours this last couple of months of guide, but they're billing 450 additional VA hours because they identified that client was a veteran and they worked them through the process of getting those VA benefits for HHA. Or they recognize the family just loved the care and they wanted more. And so they're getting their guide hours, their respite hours, but they're also getting private pay hours. So that's one thing for sure. I think people really neat VA is it's up the safest thing in the world is your private pay, right? But the VA reimbursement rates in most states are pretty healthy. You always have to be a little cautious of that because they can change those rates any day. But I think owners should really be invested, or every year, I should say, but owners should really be invested in that education of identifying veterans and how do I hold their hand through the process of getting those hours that they need. There's 4.4 million veterans out there that have a service-connected disability, and last time I checked, about only 175,000 of that 4.4 are actually receiving those benefits. So there's a huge population of veterans that are eligible that just don't know. right?
Mhm.
So let's be their advocate, but to get them those hours, ask the right questions, understand the process, learn about your VA's community care network department, and identify those vendors outside of the hospital that are also part of that system. So between Guide and Medicare, which is exciting, the VA, increasing your knowledge and understanding of how to work their systems. Medicaid is increasing rates all over the country. It's typically not, sometimes it's not the smartest ways to pay in our space because the margin is pretty low. But in
Mhm.
some state, that margin is getting higher and closer to our regular private pay rate. So eyes on that.
Mhm.
And I think as things evolve, there's different differentiators within the home that are technology driven, that are like in-home wearables or in-home, like I mentioned before, listening devices. Not so much listening, but like listening for cues on what could be happening. So there's a lot of new things that can help differentiate yourself in your market. I learned a long time ago, if you have 100 competitors in your area, though, only about 20% of those, or about 20 of those, are actually out there boots on the ground marketing. So just getting out there and having a sales process and getting out there and knocking on doors, you're already in the top 20, right? So stay consistent, create good follow-up, create differentiators for yourself. And if it's not with technology, it's with your people, it's with your team, it's with your training. So you can go out there and talk about it confidently in order to kind of earn trust to gain additional business.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for
Not a
your
lot. Sorry there, Dennis.
no, no, no. Thank you for your inputs. I feel it was a pretty good session and pretty informative one for our listeners. They must be aware about many new things. Obviously, they must be aware of a few things, and they would be learning more and more about it. And I'm really glad you were able to take out the time today for our listeners. And we hope to have another session with you shortly for more of your inputs, for more for our listeners. Right?
Great. Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you. And thank you, listeners. Thank you for your time today. I'm Dennis Gill signing off. So I'll see you soon.